Welcome to Idaho in Session, Legislature Live. Idaho in Session is sponsored by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Idaho Association of Counties, Idaho Cable Telecommunications Association, Association of Idaho Cities, and your contributions to the Idaho Public Television Endowment.
The House will be in order. The first order of business is roll call. The clerk will unlock the machines and the members will record their presence. Has every member recorded his presence? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 51 present, 19 absent excused, a quorum being present. The House is ready for business. The second order of business is prayer by the chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today the prayer will be led by House Pastor Tom Doherty, and the pledge will be led by House Page Brooklyn Burke. Will the guests in the gallery please rise? The guest.
Quote today from author C.S. Lewis. He says this: "We all want progress, but progress means getting near to the place where you want to be. And if you have taken a wrong turning, then go forward does not get you any nearer. If you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. And in that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive man." Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, you have assembled together a wonderful cast of people in this room. Thank you for the great variety of people that come together to share their wisdom with each other. Every year it is an inspiration to watch these folks work and direct this state. Lord, I recognize that sometimes there are some real tough issues before us, but with diligent, thoughtful people, progress is made and inspiration is realized. Lord, help us to our feet when we fall down or feel discouraged. May we never give up and always keep hope alive. Great successful people are people who have been knocked down many times, but rise again with great desires. Dear Lord, use each of these individuals to the best of their abilities. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The House will now advance to the third order of business, approval of the journal. The House is at the third order.
March 18th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary, Rules and Administration report that we have read and approved the House Journal of the 68th Legislative Day and recommend same be adopted as corrected. Moved by Wills, seconded by Burgoyne.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the report is adopted. The House will now advance to the fourth order of business, consideration of messages from the Governor and the Senate. The House is at the fourth order.
From the Office of the Governor, March 15, 2013. Dear Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to advise you that I have signed today and am transmitting to the Secretary of State the following House bills to wit: House Bill 66, as amended in the Senate, House Bills 96, 103, 112, 131, 139, 168, 169, 175, and 210. As always, C.L. Butch Otter, Governor of Idaho. March 15, 2013, from the Office of the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith enrolled House Bills 141, 233, 234, 235, 236, 237, 238, 184, and 187, which have been signed by the President. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bills 141, 233, 234, 235, 236, 237, 238, 184, and 187 will be referred to the Judiciary, Rules and Administration Committee for delivery to the Governor.
From the Senate, March 15, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith Senate Concurrent Resolution 124, which has passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 124 will be filed for first reading.
From the Senate, March 15, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith House Concurrent Resolution 12, which has passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Concurrent Resolution number 12 will be referred to the Judiciary, Rules and Administration Committee for enrolling. The House will now advance to the fifth order of business, report of standing committees. The House is at the fifth order.
March 18, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary, Rules and Administration report that we have printed House Concurrent Resolution 27, 28, and 29, and House Bills 308, 309, and 310. Wills, Chairman.
House Concurrent Resolution 27, House Concurrent Resolution 29, and House Bill 310 will be filed for second reading. House Concurrent Resolution 28 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. House Bills 308 and 309 will be referred to the Health and Welfare Committee.
March 18, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary, Rules and Administration report that we have enrolled House Bills 53, 159, 105, 252, 254, 262, 263, 43, and 100. Wills, Chairman.
House Bills 53, 159, 105, 252, 254, 262, 263, 43, and House Bill 100 will be signed by the Speaker and returned or transmitted to the Senate for the signature of the Senate President.
March 15, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Revenue and Taxation report that we have had under consideration House Bill 286 and recommend that it do pass. Collins, Chairman.
House Bill 286 will be filed for second reading.
March 15, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary, Rules and Administration report that we have had under consideration House Bill 241, 274, 292, and Senate Concurrent Resolutions 114 and 115, and recommend that they do pass. Wills, Chairman.
House Bills 241, 274, 292, Senate Concurrent Resolutions 114 and 115 will all be filed for the second reading.
March 15th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Transportation and Defense, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 279 and recommend that it do pass. Palmer, Chairman.
House Bill 279 will be filed for second reading. Without objection, the House will now advance to the seventh order of business, motions, memorials, and resolutions. The House is at the seventh order.
In the House of Representatives from the Senate, we have Senate Concurrent Resolution 124 by State Affairs Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and honoring 5 Idaho servicemen who fought and lost their lives in Afghanistan within the past year.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 124 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. The House will now advance to the eighth order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the eighth order.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 311 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating additional monies to the Department of Administration for fiscal year 2013, appropriating monies to the Department of Administration for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing guidance for employee compensation, transferring monies from the Permanent Building Fund, and declaring an emergency for Section 1 of this act. House Bill number 312 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Department of Administration for the Bond Payment Program for fiscal year 2014. House Bill number 313 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Division of Public Works for fiscal year 2014, authorizing and directing the allocation of funds for the various projects specified, providing legislative intent relating to utilization of matching funds, exempting the appropriation from the provisions of Chapter 36, Title 67 Idaho Code, and from the provisions of Section 673516, providing legislative intent relating to reallocation of project savings, stating findings of the legislature on the need for deferred maintenance funding at the state institutions of higher learning, and directing the allocation of funds for deferred maintenance at the state institutions of higher learning.
House Bills 311, 312, and 313 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for printing. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 10th order of business, the second reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 10th order.
March 18th, 2013, in the House of Representatives, House Bill 296 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Pardons, and Parole Commission. House Bill 297 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Transportation Department. House Bill 298 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Idaho State Historical Society. House Bill 299 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Financial Management Division. House Bill 300 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Legislative Council. House Bill 301 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Governor, Executive Office. House Bill 302 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Military Division. House Bill 303 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Idaho State Police. House Bill 304 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Brand Inspection and Racing Commission. House Bill 305 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Juvenile Corrections Department. House Bill 306 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Supreme Court. House Bill 291 by Health and Welfare Committee regarding hospitalization, mentally ill. House Joint Memorial 2 by State Affairs Committee regarding Federal Communications Commission enforcement. Senate Bill 1080 by State Affairs Committee regarding county officers. Senate Bill 1078 by State Affairs Committee regarding religious students campus access. House Bill 80 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee regarding emergency communications. House Bill 271 by Revenue and Taxation Committee regarding water quality. Senate Bill 1112 by State Affairs Committee regarding Public Utilities Commission. Senate Bill 1152 by Finance Committee regarding Appropriations, Professional Technical Education Division. Senate Bill 1153 by Finance Committee regarding Appropriations, Catastrophic Health Care Cost Fund. Senate Bill 1154 by Finance Committee regarding Appropriations, Commission for Libraries. House Bill 231 as amended by State Affairs Committee regarding Public Works. House Bill 265 as amended by State Affairs Committee regarding Public Works.
House Bills 296, 297, 298, 299, 300, 301, 302, 303, 304, 305, 306. House Bill 291, House Joint Memorial Number 2. Senate Bills 1080 and 1078, House Bill 80, House Bill 271, Senate Bills 1112, 1152, 1153, 1154, and House Bills 231 as amended and 265 as amended will all be filed for the third reading. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 12th order of business, consideration of general orders. The House is at the 12th order.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the House will now resolve itself into a Committee of the Whole. Would the gentleman from District 13 come forward and chair the committee, please? House will be at ease.
On these, we're going to hit here and then go back up through. Is that correct?
Where's, I'm sorry.
Do you have my copy?
Mm-hmm.
So these three, they were moved down through correction. After we do three, then we do correction.
Committee of the Whole will be in order. The committee will have under consideration Senate Bill 1072 as amended. Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, the motion to append the bill for Senate Bill 1072 has been made by Representative Rushi and seconded by Representative Wood 27.
If there are no objections, the amendment to if there are no amendments to Senate Bill 1072 as amended will be considered read, and the chair recognizes the good gentleman from District 6 to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 1072 is a bill to initiate a fund for to promote organ transplant. And as the bill was originally written, that funding would be managed through the Department of Health and Welfare. The sponsor of the bill in our committee mentioned that the toll for administration charged by the Department of Health and Welfare was greater than was warranted, and he had arranged for it to remain within the Department of Transportation, who will be collecting this. The amendments take out reference to Department of Health and Welfare and replace that with the Idaho Transportation Department.
Is there any further debate in favor of the amendment? Any debate in opposition to the amendment? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall the amendment to Senate Bill 1072 as amended be adopted? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried, and the amendment to Senate Bill 1072 as amended will be adopted. Are there further amendments?
Yes, the motion to amend Section 1 of Senate Bill 1072 as amended has been made by Representative Rushi and seconded by Representative Wood.
If there are no objections, the amendment to Section 1 of Senate Bill 1072 will be considered read, and the chair now recognizes the good gentleman from District 6 to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is just exactly what I said before.
Thank you, good gentleman from District 6. Any further debate in favor of amendment to Section 1? Any debate in opposition? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall the amendment to Section 1 be adopted? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried and the amendment to Section 1 is adopted. Are there further amendments?
Yes, the motion to amend Section 2 of Senate Bill 1072 as amended has been made by Representative Rushi and seconded by Representative Wood.
If there are no objections, the amendment to Section 2 of Senate Bill 1072 as amended will be considered read, and the Chair recognizes the good gentleman from District 6 again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ditto.
Is there any further debate in favor of the amendment to Section 2 to the bill? Any debate in opposition? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall the amendment to Section 2 be adopted? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried and the amendment to Section 2 has been adopted. Are there further amendments?
Yes, the motion to amend Section 3 of Senate Bill 1072 as amended has been made by Representative Rushi and seconded by Representative Wood.
If there are no objections, the amendment to Section 3 will be considered read. The Chair recognizes for the final time the good gentleman from District 6 to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's more of the same. Thank you.
Thank you, good gentlemen. Is there further debate in favor of the amendment? Hearing none, is there debate in opposition? The debate is closed. The question is, shall the amendment to Section 3 of the bill be adopted? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried and the amendment to Section 3 of the bill has been adopted. Are there further amendments?
No further sections to the amendment.
Is there correction to title?
Yes, the motion for correction to title has been made by Representative Rushi and seconded by Representative Wood.
If there are no objections to correction to title for Senate Bill 1072 as amended, will be considered read. You all have heard the motion for correction to title. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carried and the correction to title is adopted. Are there further amendments?
No further amendments to the bill.
Good gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Chairman, I move that with the committee rise the report that has had under consideration Senate Bill 1072 as amended and report it back with amendments and without recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
You all have heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. The committee will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1116 as amended. Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, the motion to amend Section 1 of Senate Bill 1116 as amended has been made by Representative Hickson and seconded by Representative Wood.
If there are no objections, the amendment to Section 1 of Senate Bill 1116 as amended will be considered read, and the Chair recognizes the good gentleman from District 10 to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this original bill was to allow the first responders at the scene of a death to notify the Idaho Communications Center as soon as reasonably possible of the deceased persons who may be organ donors. The center then may notify the tissue bank, eye bank, or organ procurement organizations. And in committee, we came to realize that we needed to add an amendment that basically just clarifies for all individuals identified as a donor. We just want to make sure that the people who are actually going to be donating organs have gone through the process of being identified as a donor.
Thank you, good gentleman. Any further debate in favor of the amendment? Any debate in opposition? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall the amendment to Section 1 be adopted? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried and the amendment to Section 1 is adopted. Are there further sections to be amended?
No further sections to the amendment.
Is there correction to title?
Yes, the motion for correction to title has been made by Representative Hickson and seconded by Representative Representative Wood. Sorry.
Thank you. If there are no objections, the correction title to Senate Bill 1116 as amended will be considered read. You have heard the motion for correction to title. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried and the correction to title has been adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No further amendments to the bill.
Good gentleman from 14.
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee rise the report that has had under consideration Senate Bill 1116 as amended and report it back with amendments and without recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
You all have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Will be done. You all,
Mr. Chairman.
Good gentleman from 14.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee rise and report.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
You all have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. The committee of the whole will be dissolved.
The House will be in order. Gentleman from 13.
Mr. Speaker, we, your committee of the whole House, report that we have had under consideration Senate Bill 1072 as amended and Senate Bill 1116 as amended, and report them back without recommendation as amended. Mr. Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the report will be adopted. House or Senate Bills 1072 as amended and 1116 as amended will be filed for first reading, and the amendments will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for printing. Without objection, the House will return to the 11th order of business, third reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 11th order. The House will have under consideration House Bill 250.
Mr. Speaker.
Actually, not 250.
Yeah, 250 was held until tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Excuse me. The House will have under consideration. Good gentleman from 14.
Mr. Speaker, for a motion while I'm standing here, the sponsor of House Bill 275 is waiting for some additional information, so I'd ask unanimous consent that House Bill 275 hold its place on the third reading calendar one legislative day.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, House Bill 275 will hold its place on the third reading calendar for one legislative day. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 268. The gentleman from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 268.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill was brought by the physicians of Idaho and limits the use of tanning salon ultraviolet radiation devices, or tanning beds, by children. We had extensive discussion on this issue last session, and I think the facts are fairly well known. Excessive ultraviolet radiation causes skin cancer. The UV damage in children is especially dangerous. This bill limits the use to those over age 15 and between age 16 and 18, allows the recreational use of tanning beds only with authentic parental permission. Some of the things that we've discussed this year include the following. One, UV radiation causes genetic changes in skin cells and causes cancer. These skin cells, including deadly melanoma, also referred to as black mole cancer. Factors known to increase this damage include fair complexion or personal genetics, elevation, sun exposure, and extraneous UV exposure. Children have more rapidly reproducing skin cells and are more likely to have their the cells affected with this genetic change. There are few therapeutic uses for UV radiation. When it is used for such as psoriasis, it's closely monitored and physician prescribed. It was presented to us that many children tan without their parents' knowledge or consent. I believe this is a good bill. Some may be concerned that it interferes with parental responsibility. I believe that it helps parents. It requires that they give permission before allowing their kids to engage in this risky behavior. Some have asked if the next step is to require sunblock. I respond that because you cannot stop particulates from forest fires or the pollution from cars entering airways doesn't mean that there's something wrong with protecting kids from cigarette smoke. The issues seem analogous to me. There are some projections in the bill for owners and operators who are misled by false permission or IDs. This, I believe, is appropriate. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, it's not often that we as legislators vote on bills that will save lives. With the rates of skin cancer increasing and the lethality of melanoma, lowering the disease rate by preventing ultraviolet exposure will do that. This bill will save lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from 35.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I rise in support of this bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I too am a member of the Health and Welfare Committee, and we heard considerable testimony has been mentioned. This is a bill where we can save lives. And when those lives are our kids or our grandkids, that should be an easy decision, I think, for us to make. I think the major argument against this bill is that we're taking away parents' rights. Well, we did that when we decided to have our kids be a certain age to drive. They can drive now without restrictions at 17. We said they couldn't buy cigarettes, even with parental consent. We can't allow them to drink alcoholic beverages, even with parental consent. In Idaho, if you'll look at this handout that we received, 260% more teenagers tan in Idaho than the national average. We received testimony in committee that it's addictive, that kids tend to go once or twice a week, and then they like it so much, they go again and again. One testament was that they got to where they were tanning 7 days a week. And so I guess in my own perspective, if we're going to err at all today in this decision, let's err on the side of our kids and give this a green light. I'd urge your support. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman from 6 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, in the last paragraph of the bill on page 3, it refers to local units of government being able to pass ordinances that are more stringent than the provisions of the bill. Would this language prohibit the existence of the beds themselves for young people entirely, or change the age limits at a local level? What does that mean specifically as to how it would be applied?
Gentleman from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, just give me a second here to pull the text of the bill up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and good gentleman. That merely says that if a municipality chooses to be more restrictive, that this statute does not supersede the local control that they may have.
Mr.
Gentleman
Speaker,
from 24.
a further question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, does that mean that they could lower the age if they felt at the local level, that they could lower it to, say, 14 or even lower if they found that there was a local issue?
Gentleman from 6.
Mr. Speaker and good gentleman, I don't think so, because it says that can't keep them from passing a statute that is more stringent than this law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, good gentleman.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 10.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good ladies and gentlemen of the body. I rise today to debate the bill in opposition of the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I was also a member of the Health and Welfare Committee when this bill was presented before us, and while I am sympathetic to the facts and figures and some other things that were presented before the committee, I don't feel like it's the state of Idaho's responsibility to step in and and do the job of a parent when it comes to minors in the tanning bed. I think that industry right now as a whole does a pretty good job of making sure that they have parental consent forms on site. If there was a bill that was to be brought forth with parental consent under the age of 16, I would support that, but I will not support making it a law illegal, to prohibit 15 and under from tanning. It just doesn't make much sense to me in that aspect. I think this is somewhat of an overreach of the state of Idaho government, and I will not support the bill. And I encourage your no vote. Thank you.
Further debate. Gentleman from 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen, I also rise in opposition to this bill. I believe it's an overreach of government reaction. A lot of the statistics that were presented to our committee deal with skin cancer, not necessarily where it's caused or how it's caused. The presenter also was willing to admit that a lot of the skin cancer comes from, we are an outdoor society. We like to get out, we like to recreate outdoors, and that is one of the reasons why there is a higher percentage of skin cancer in Idaho than in other population. But also they were also willing to admit that the penalties are virtually not collectible or not enforceable. And I would challenge people, if you're going to fine somebody $100 for their first violation and $300 for subsequent violation, if a high school student comes to school with a tan, is that high school student immediately sent to the principal's office and asked, where'd you get the tan? Can I fine you $100? Who's going to collect it? Who's going to turn them in? This whole mechanism of civil penalties of $100 and $300, so if I come in January with a tan or if I come in May with a tan, where'd I get it? It doesn't prohibit tanning at home. I really think that there's a personal responsibility here, and I think we're really overstretching. You know, a lot of times we have debates about the federal government coming in here, putting restrictions, putting demands, and putting penalties on us for doing this or doing that, and I don't think the state should be getting into the position now of fining teenagers and parents for this action. I had proposed to IMA that we put a restriction of 16 years. Below 16 years, they were not allowed to go to the tanning booth, and 16 to 18, they needed parental consent. They were not happy with that. They would like to block it all the way rather than going into what I would consider a compromise and allowing something a little better legislative-wise to come through this body. And so with that, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen, I will stand in opposition to this bill.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 8.
Will the gentleman from 6 yield?
Will the gentleman from District 6 yield to a question?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, I have one question, and that is, who is the enforcement agency?
Gentleman from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen. This could be any local law enforcement.
Gentleman from
Thank
6.
you, good gentleman.
Or 8.
To debate against the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, good members of the body, one more time we're asked to place a burden on small business. We ask them to be our enforcer without compensation. Small business has tough enough time to make it today. And I don't think it's our position to put further restrictions on small business. This decision truly lies with the parents, and I really wish we could figure out how to convince parents to be parents, because we would not only solve this problem, but we would solve our education problems and many other problems. But this piece of legislation today I cannot support. I will be voting against the bill.
So further debate. Gentleman from 27.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, good ladies and gentlemen of the House. I think the science is very clear here. I don't think there's much dispute about that. Multiple meta-analysis, et cetera, have shown that statistically speaking, tanning at a certain age, particularly in juveniles, when skin cells are rapidly growing, certainly increases the risk of carcinoma. Obviously, what we're debating here is whether or not we want to go down the road of doing the same thing that we have done with other recognized carcinogens and other recognized elements that that affect human behavior in our young population, such as alcohol, tobacco, etc. And we've already made that determination. We know that there is a significant increase of cancer, specifically melanoma, in the younger generation that does this. I get what the opponents are talking about. I understand that. But I think that this is a true public health question. I don't think that it's a question of what we're doing to small business, and I don't think it's a question of those other things. The second issue that I wish to address very briefly is that of addiction. There is no doubt now that in certain individuals, just like certain individuals with respect to opiate, narcotics, etc., that there is a physical addiction to tanning. And it doesn't occur in all people, but it certainly does occur in a certain segment of the population. So with that, I would encourage your yes vote on House Bill 268. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, would the gentleman from District 6 care to close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple of things. The lenient enforcement was a result of compromise. And so while some may have wished more severe penalties, that wasn't what the sponsors of the legislation came forward with this year. And I was somewhat confused by the good gentleman from 22 because what he is asking for is exactly what this bill has. It forbids tanning below age 16. Between 16 and 18, it requires parental consent. It protects the owners of the salon if they are presented a false ID. And I think that as the good gentleman from 27 said, it really comes down to this question. Is it appropriate to protect children from future harm of the behavior they don't fully understand? I think that is a role of adults, and I think this is good legislation. I ask for your green light. Thank you.
The debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 268 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? Representative Crane, how do you vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 25 aye, 43 nay, 2 absent excused. House Bill 268 has failed the House and will be retained in the Chief Clerk's office. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 130 as amended in the Senate. Good gentleman from District 34.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask for unanimous consent to dispense with the further reading of House Bill 130 as amended.
You all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker and good members of the House, this is a bill we passed the other day that prescribed the procedures and clarified the rules for election of directors in an irrigation district. It was sent over to the Senate. They approved the bill, but they did make some amendments, and the amendments, I think, added to the clarification of the requirements of these directors in an irrigation district. Amendment number 1 provides for the term of office, and it also provides that if a director is not elected in an election, suppose no one applies for election, the other director continues, and then a new director will be elected at the next regular election, but will only serve for the remainder of that first director's term. Now, most districts, for example, say have 6 directors, and they are elected for staggered terms of 3 years. So if a director is not elected to replace a previous director, then he would fulfill 2 years of that 3-year term, not another 3 years, so that it keeps the directors all in the staggered terms properly. Amendment 2 outlines the requirements of a new director, and that is that they be presented a certificate of election by the district, and if they need to post a bond, they will do so. Most districts don't do that, but some might do. And that they will assume, agree that they will assume the duties of the office of the director. The amendment number 3, that amendment deletes language in the page, on page 3, line 22. And the reason that is deleted is because it is included in the amendment number 2. So it's redundant, we don't need it. And then there does need to be a small correction to the title to provide for these procedures that these new amendments make. This is a good bill. It outlines and puts in statute the requirements for directors of water districts, and mostly they've been proceeding along these lines for years, but this will put it in the statute so that any district that has an election elects its directors, and the newly elected directors will know exactly what they're supposed to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This deserves a green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 130 as amended in the Senate pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes.
Judy, put me on as a co-sponsor on that bill that you and Monty have got going. Appreciate it.
Has every member voted? Representative Chu votes aye. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 ayes, 0 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 130 as amended in the Senate has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none. House Bill 130 as amended in the Senate will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for enrolling. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 167 as amended in the Senate. Good lady from District 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of Senate Bill, House Bill 167 as amended in the Senate.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady is recognized to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill to do with the motor vehicle dealers and salesmen was amended. It took one line out and added designee and the dealer advisory board or their designee, and that is in Gross bill, and that's all that they did in the change of the bill. And it's still a good bill, and would ask your green light to pass it.
Is there further debate? Good lady from District 4.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, just to declare Rule 38, I'm an auto dealer.
Duly noted. Further debate? Hearing a good gentleman from District 21.
Thank you, good Speaker. I stand to debate against the bill.
The gentleman has the floor.
Seems like just last month I stood here to debate against this very bill, and you're going to hear it all again. I know there are no general funds or dedicated funds used here. I understand that who funds this pool. I know the Dealers Association is in favor of this, but that makes no difference. The act of surety bonding for automobile dealers does and should occur in the free market, and the government should stay as far away as possible. Here's how the government sometimes helps. First, we triple the bonding requirement. Then we say, this might put some dealers out of business. Then we solve the very problem we created with a government solution. So this bill is about a fund to pool money to act as a surety bond insurance for automobile dealers, and a board to manage the fund. Good idea, right? This is exactly how insurance works. But in this case, it's a government fund. This is a government board taking the place of what does occur and should occur privately. Think about it. Can you imagine the thousands of ways this approach could be extrapolated, especially in the insurance market? We all talk about the proper role of government, and then look back over the years and wonder how we've gotten so off course. We realize it's death by 1,000 cuts. Well, this bill is one of those 1,000 cuts. We're saying, in effect, the free market works great, except when it comes to surety bond insurance for automobile dealers. Is this how we think? Each time we try to exceed government's proper role, there's always a reasonable rationale to it. In this case, we say the government is more efficient. There's economies of scale, and needed cooperation can be enforced through the entire group. But in each case, we should trust the free market to do just fine. This bill isn't particularly important in terms of dollar value or scope, but the principle here is as big as anything we've seen this year. This bill is particularly wrong because it opens up a whole new category where the government can inappropriately get involved. I actually called a couple of surety bond agents in the area, and they were flabbergasted to learn that such a bill was even being considered. We hear there's no opposition to the bill, but I don't think that's quite right. Each of us represent 45,000 constituents who sent us here to help push back government overreaching. Please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just Rule 38. Rule 38, Mr. Speaker, because of clients.
Under Rule 38, the gentleman from 17 is declaring some conflict. Is there further debate? Would the lady from District 35 close the debate, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I would. And I would call to your attention, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this bill is to protect consumers, people who buy an automobile or a vehicle of any kind, and if at the present time their bond is $20,000. So what this bill does is it pulls all of the dealers together and pools their ability to bond themselves for $50,000. So the consumer is being better cared for in this bill by having the expense of an automobile or a vehicle has grown quite a lot since this bond was put in place. So it needs to be raised so there's a protection for the more expensive vehicles. And in order for all the dealers to be able to participate, they did raise the cost of this rather than put the small consumer or the small dealer at a disadvantage with a much higher cost to join to get the insurance. Really, it is an advisory or automobile dealer advisory board, and it's a consumer asset recovery control board. So really, the protection here is not just so much for the dealer, although if a disaster happens and they lose more than one vehicle, they can go up to $120,000 to make the consumer whole. And so I think there are two objectives to the bill that are good objectives, and would ask your green light in passing it.
Thank you, good lady. The debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 167, as amended in the Senate, pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 50 aye, 19 nay, 1 absent excused. House Bill 167 as amended in the Senate has passed the House. As a correction to the title, hearing none, House Bill 167 as amended in the Senate will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for enrolling. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1013 as amended in the House. Good gentleman from District 2.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to dispense with reading of Senate Bill 1013.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 1013 makes changes to the Telecommunications Service Assistance Act and amendments to this bill, which were considered by the House about a week ago, limit the scope of this bill by granting limited federal lifeline contribution authority instead of maximizing that authority. Section 2 of the bill lowers the current $3.50 per line charge to $2.50, and the language in the bill limits the scope of the subsidy from a single line at the principal residence to a single line per household. There's also a change in terms of link-up language in the last part of Section 2, which was in the original Senate bill, which is deleted to modernize the language and to delete the word exchange. This is a rather straightforward and modernization bill that limits authority that was pretty much unlimited previously. And I think it's a good bill. I request your support and your green light.
Sounds good. Is there further debate? Gentleman from 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman stand for a question?
The gentleman from District 2 stand for a question.
The gentleman will yield.
The gentleman yields to a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, can you be specific as to how this change would either restrict or expand what's commonly referred to as the Obama phone program, which I think is this related to that in any way, the Lifeline subsidy program?
Gentleman from 2.
Mr. Speaker, this is related to that. In Section 1 of the bill, the prior language, to quote the sentence, the Telecommunications Service Assistance Program shall, previously it said maximize federal lifeline contributions, federal lifeline and link-up contributions to Idaho low-income customers. The bill changes this philosophy to granting limited federal lifeline contributions. In Section 2 of the bill, the language is more restrictive. It lowers the monthly subsidy from $3.50 to $2.50. It no longer links it to the amount authorized by the Federal Communications Commission, whichever is greater. So it is a fixed or a finite amount. As mentioned, the language changes from authorizing one line per principal residence to one line per household. So it's more restrictive, results in about a 29% decrease. Good gentleman.
Follow up, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentleman yield further?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was there discussion as to the numbers of people that would apply or qualify under the new proposal as opposed to under the current proposal, and what the impact on the numbers of people in this plan would be in Idaho either way?
Gentleman from 2.
Mr. Speaker, the number of people would be the same. The amount of subsidy is limited by this language and decreased by $1 a line. That subsidy is no longer borne by existing line users.
One follow-up.
Will the gentleman yield to another question?
The gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So if I understand it correctly, the changes from resident to household, how would that affect, and would a household be able to get multiple phones on this program as opposed to one phone previously under the residence definition?
Gentleman from 2.
Mr. Speaker, I believe it becomes more restrictive. The prior sections of the Act have a very expansive definition of household, as I recall, and under the existing language, by limiting or by restricting it to a primary residence, that would be more expansive than the household under the current language of this amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, good gentleman.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1013 as amended in the House pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? Representative Rushi. The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 69 ayes, 0 nay, 1 absent, excused. Senate Bill 1013 as amended in the House has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1013 as amended in the House will be returned to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1093. Good gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, apologize, too much going on right there. Mr. Speaker, 1093 and Senate Bill 1097 as amended. The sponsors of those two bills have asked for a little more time to get some more information. So I'd ask unanimous consent that Senate Bill 1093 and 1097 as amended hold their place one legislative day.
You all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, Senate Bills 1093 and 1097 as amended will hold their place on the third reading calendar for one legislative day. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1063. Good lady from District 11.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent that the reading of Senate Bill 1063 be dispensed with, please.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady from District 11 is recognized to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, last session this body passed the Medical Consent and Natural Death Act, which is found in Section 39-4514 of Idaho Code. And they did that to ensure that a patient's wishes for end-of-life medical care are honored. The Medical Consent and Natural Death Act was designed to clarify that necessary medical care would not be withdrawn against a patient's directive unless it is medically inappropriate or considered futile care. Futile care in this statute is defined as care that is provided for a patient who is expected to live only hours or a few days, but that will not improve the patient's condition. So even though we thought of this bill as affecting only end-of-life care, it has been suggested since then that the language has an ambiguity that would require a doctor or a hospital to provide any care a patient requests at any time, not just end-of-life care, and that is not what was intended with the bill. So as an example, a patient who is not a good candidate for an organ transplant should not be able to demand that it is provided anyway. This legislation is simply clarifying that the type of care that may not be withdrawn against a patient's directive is only that care that will sustain the patient's life or keep the patient comfortable in his or her last days, and that other inappropriate care need not be provided. So this clarifies actually the original intent of the bill, and we'd like to ask for your green light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, good lady. Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1063 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 67 ayes, 0 nay, 3 absent, excused. Senate Bill 1063 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1063 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1100. Good gentleman from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do request unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1100.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 1100 is a health care sharing ministry shall not be considered to be engaged in business of insurance for the purposes of the State Insurance Code. Health care sharing ministries are charitable organizations that cater to people of similar faith who choose to help each other pay their medical bills. The organization is just a facilitator of the contributions among the participants who have a financial or medical needs. Between the three national ministries that do healthcare sharing, over their total existence of 30 years, they have helped pay more than $1.75 billion in medical bills. The three ministries are called Samaritan Ministries, MediShare, and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Their ministry is based on the biblical belief of personal responsibility and that we are called to share each other's burdens when they're greater than we can bear. They attest to no tobacco, no illegal drugs, no abuse of alcohol, and follow traditional marriage. Their stellar performance was enough for Congress to recognize them as legitimate and, I want to emphasize, exempt the participants from the healthcare sharing ministries from individual responsibility under the Affordable Care Act. This means that come January 2014, participants of healthcare sharing ministries will not be required to purchase health insurance, nor will they be fined or penalized for not purchasing health insurance. They know that they will not be breaking the law of the Affordable Care Act. Right now, they have approximately 800 households in Idaho participating in healthcare sharing ministries. This equates to 2,500 individuals. This bill is to exempt these organizations from our state's insurance regulations. By doing so, we will be joining 22 other states who have already done so, including Washington in 2011, South Dakota in 2012, and Utah years ago. Put it simply, this bill does two things. It defines what a healthcare sharing ministry is in Idaho's code, and it exempts them from our insurance code because they're not insurance companies. They're 501c3 charities and are under the regulations of the IRS and the State Attorney General oversight. Fighting the regulators in court is extremely expensive for the participants of already financially stressed segment of the population. With that, Mr. Speaker and good body, I ask for your green light. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1100 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Ringo. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 aye, 1 nay, 1 absent excused. Senate Bill 1100 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1100 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1033 as amended. Good lady from District 33.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1033 as amended.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady from District 33 is recognized to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2008, Idaho adopted the Uniform Power of Attorney Act. And in Section 15-2-108 of that act, we changed the long-standing Idaho law that the appointment of a conservator revoked existing financial powers of attorney, providing instead that the existing financial powers of attorney would remain unless otherwise ordered by court. This, unfortunately, has proven to be a major problem, especially when a temporary conservator is appointed to preserve the assets of this protected person. This bill solves that problem by providing that appointment of a temporary or permanent conservator terminates the power of attorney. It also allows the court, in appropriate cases, to limit or continue the power instead of terminating it. This will keep control in the court-appointed and court-monitored conservator while keeping flexibility. This did pass our committee with a do-pass recommendation, and I ask for your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1033 as amended pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 69 ayes, 0 nay, 1 absent excused. Senate Bill 1033, as amended, is passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1033, as amended, will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1061. Good lady from District 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1061.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This piece of legislation comes to the Resources and Environment Committee, and it is a coordination of policy and programs related to threatened species and endangered species in Idaho. And what it does, it's a bit of amendment. It's only about 6 lines in the second page of the amendment. And it says that amends existing law relating to threatened and endangered species to provide that the state asserts primacy over the management of its fish and wildlife, and that it is against the policy of the state of Idaho to introduce or reintroduce any federally listed species onto lands within the state or into state waters without state consultation and approval. So it is a policy decision just restating our primacy over our fish and wildlife in the state of Idaho, and would ask for your green vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1061 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Harris votes aye. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 58 aye, 10 nay, 2 absent excused. Senate Bill 1061 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1061 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1062 as amended. Good lady from District 11.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the reading of Senate Bill 1062 as amended be dispensed with, please.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. This one's kind of a fun constituent-driven piece of legislation. Senate Bill 1062 seeks to amend sections 18-7008 and 361603 of the Idaho Code. And the change simply gives more options to property owners as they mark their property to indicate no trespassing. And the story behind this was kind of interesting. There was a gentleman over in eastern Idaho who attempted to buy fluorescent orange paint because Idaho code says that you have to mark your property with fluorescent orange paint. And he found that when he could find it, it only came in spray cans and it was extremely expensive. And the code, he followed the letter of the law, and he was very frustrated and thought, boy, wouldn't it just be nice if we could paint it with plain orange paint. But the gentleman did go so far, actually, as to contact the Disney Corporation to try to track down some fluorescent orange paint when he decided that I think maybe we'll just go to orange. And for any of you who have probably already marked your property, really, the reality is most of us just simply do use orange paint, but he felt it's extremely important, and it is, that we correct the law to actually be the way that it should. So what happened was this bill then simply says that you can use orange paint, and also it makes one other change, that when you are painting T-posts, the law used to say that you had to paint the entire T-post, which means you go down through the brushes and the weeds and everything else to do it. And this actually changes it so that you only have to actually paint the first top 18 inches of the T-post. So right now, law enforcement and Fish and Game do recognize bright orange colors, and this is just putting in code what the recognized practice has been. This has been run by law enforcement, the Idaho Association of Counties, and the Fish and Game, and they are all supportive of this. So we just want you to know that this bill is constituent-driven, it's consumer-friendly, and it makes good sense. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to ask for your green light on this. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1062 as amended pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Wills. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 65 aye, 2 nay, 3 absent excused. Senate Bill 1062 as amended has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1062 as amended will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1142. Good lady from District 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for unanimous request to dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1142.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the fiscal year 2014 appropriation for the Commission for Blind and Visually Impaired. The mission of the Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired is to provide direct service training to eligible blind and visually impaired so they can become employed and contribute independently to their own well-being. The appropriation is for $4,507,600, which includes $1,282,800 and $800 from the general fund. This budget includes adjustments for employee benefit costs and statewide cost allocations, and one line item for $100,000 that is money donated from a former client for the older individuals who are blind in sight restoration programs. This $100,000 will be used to help cover the costs of a vision specialist to travel the state and provide services to clients around the state. I ask for your green light. Thank you.
Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1142 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 65 aye, 2 nay, 3 absent excused. Senate Bill 1142 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1142 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1006 as amended. Good lady from District 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1006 as amended.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was amended in the Senate, and what this bill was the powers and duties of a state highway system when they wish to abandon a state-controlled highway to a local government agency, either highway district or county. And they are under the jurisdiction of the Idaho Code, Section 4203B in Idaho Code, and so and the important thing here is that a highway can only be relinquished by consent of the recipient. So the amendment said that, and I'd like to read that if I could to you, Mr. Speaker, off the bill.
Please continue.
Prior to consenting to an abandonment or assumption of the applicable highway, the local highway jurisdiction may conduct a public hearing and also provide notice to any impacted property owners, businesses, industries, and enterprises. So the state highway, with that amendment, must have the acquiescence of the local highway jurisdiction. And we would ask you to support them in this amendment.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1006, as amended, pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Ringo, how do you vote? Representative Ringo votes aye. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 67 ayes, 0 nay, 3 absent, excused. Senate Bill 1006 as amended is passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1006 as amended will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1064. Good lady from District 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1064.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill has to do with, ladies and gentlemen, a 10-year study of the Department of Transportation on the project of increasing the legal truck weight limits on a number of state highways in southern Idaho. The trucks were configured to increase gross weights from 105 pounds to 129 on 16 routes specified in the legislation. And I will add to you that each of those routes came before the legislature, and we did vote to accept them. In 2005 and 2007, an additional 16 routes were added. This legislation tasked the Idaho Department of Transportation with evaluating the impacts of the pilot project routes on bridges, pavement, and roadway safety. And we had to comply with federal requirements in all of those things, particularly with the bridges on a particular piece of federal rule, I guess you would say. The legislations also asked the ITD to submit reports to us each year, and they, in accumulating enough people who were traveling, every 3 years they did come in and make a report to the legislature. And the final report on the project was made to the legislature this past January. The report stated that it did not observe any significant effect of the 129,000-pound pilot project trucks on pavement, bridges, or roadway safety. And I might add, the reason for that is the added axles required under the bill on each of those vehicles. Project participants reported substantial economic benefits associated with the pilot project, with one company reporting savings of over $2.5 million during the pilot project, and other reported trips reductions saving between $70,000 to $180,000 per year. This legislation had a pilot had a sunset provision, and this bill takes that away. And I would like to, if I might, Mr. Speaker, tell you the companies or the people who sent us their commitment to support this piece of legislation: the Idaho Farm Bureau, the Idaho Food Producers, the Idaho Oregon Fruit and Vegetable Producers, the Idaho Grain Producers Association, the Idaho Potato Growers Association, the Lot Trucking, the Idaho Sugar Beet Growers, U.S. Ecology, and the Amalgamated Sugar Company. Thank you.
White satin.
And we do feel like that. The study that was given to us and the effort that was put into it by all of the people affected made this a good bill, and we certainly hope you will pass it with a green light. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1064 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member, Representative Sims? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 69 aye, 1 nay, 0 absent, excused. Senate Bill 1064 is passed. The House is a correction to title. Hearing none, Senate Bill 1064 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1029. The gentleman from District 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could we hold this for one day?
Mr. Speaker,
gentleman from 14.
It's almost time for lunch, so I would ask a couple of questions here. Maybe a point of personal privilege. Let's do that.
Gentleman from 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's our intention to come back on the floor at 3:30 this afternoon. And depending on what happens this afternoon, we may or may not run bills. I'll leave that open. But we've got some things we've got to run through the order and some things to do, and so we'll see what happens. So we've got a few committees that are meeting this afternoon at 1:30. So I just give you all a heads up on that. Second, Mr. Speaker, I would ask unanimous consent. On the third reading calendar, we have House Bill 38. That is not necessary any longer, and I would ask unanimous consent that House Bill 38 be returned to the Resources Committee.
Would the gentleman describe House Bill 38, please?
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, House Bill 38 is the statewide water plan, and under our Constitution, we had to act within 60 days, and that time period has passed, so there's no longer a need for that bill. It is in place today, so that bill is no longer necessary.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request that House Bill 38 be returned to the House Resources and Conservation Committee. Is there an objection? Hearing none. So ordered.
And to save our good friend from District 17, I would move that the House recess until the hour of 3:30.
Mr. Speaker, I second that motion.
You all heard the motion. All in favor? Before placing the question, are there announcements? Gentleman from 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will be meeting at 2:30 in the JFAC room.
Gentleman from 23.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and esteemed colleagues. I just want to thank you personally for last week, all of the prayers and concerns and comments and cards and so on that came my direction. I am very grateful. Not only having a tough time, but I was also very ill last week, and I thank you very much for your concern.
Further announcements? The question is, shall the House recess until the hour of 3:30 p.m.? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the House stands at recess until the hour of 3:30 p.m.